Are we really making Riesling?
I'm Greg.
I'm Julie, and we're the Crafty Winers. So yes, we really are making Riesling. This is our concentrate right here. I've started doing a little bit of research on the wines that we do as we do them, because in the beginning we did a whole lot of Merlot. It was just Merlot after Merlot after Merlot.
Well, flavors of Merlot,
Well, I mean,
fusions
we
of Merlot.
infused them, and we've got,
Because
if you,
we like Merlot.
yes, we do like Merlot. We were kind of on the red track there for a while, so we've branched out and started doing a few more white wines. So we wanted to do Riesling for you guys. So I did a little research on Riesling. I mean, most people probably assume it's German, and it is. It's Riesling grapes are believed to have originated in the Rhine Valley of Germany. And we all know the Germans were good at fermenting things. They were the Germanic tribes were fermenting things even before 50 BC. So they've been doing it a while. You always think of France and Italy as the wine people, but Germans make good wine too. So the first wine connoisseur was Emperor Charlemagne. You're going to love this. He was instrumental in spreading wine through Christianity.
Well, thank you.
Killing two birds with one stone. Bring you to Jesus and get you drunk. Riesling's first recorded mention was in 1435, but it was not called Riesling at that time. It was called, and I'm going to totally butcher this, it was called Rieslingen, or
Sounds German.
something like that. But in 1787, the Archbishop of Trier, or Trier, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, so forgive me if you're from Trier, he decreed that all bad vines were to be ripped out of the ground and replaced with Riesling. So Germany became like the largest producer of Riesling
By decree.
by decree. I mean, because he wanted quality grapes, and he said all the rest of them were crappy. So rip them out, replace them with Riesling. So that's what they did. By the 1850s, it was super popular. It was getting higher prices than Bordeaux and Champagne, believe it or not. It was that popular. So by the 1990s, mid 1990s, I guess, it pretty much became the king of German wines. And Germany, like I said, has a 40% market share of the Rieslings throughout the world, so they grow most of it. But it does grow on every continent except Antarctica, for obvious reasons. A
Those
lot.
polar bears don't like Riesling.
We have a winery, San Chapelle, here in Idaho that makes a really good Riesling that we like. But a lot of it comes from Washington, too. They do a lot of Riesling there. And so anyway, that's my, history lesson on Riesling for you. Hopefully you feel much more educated now. Or not. So now for the fun part. We are going to start this, and we are using our new method again, which has saved us so much time with this pitcher instead of pouring all this stuff with a funnel into the carboy. So we're happy with this method.
Speeds it up a lot. So you see the foam in here. That's from sanitizing. Make sure that you sanitize everything. They say don't fear the foam. A lot of times I'll rinse the foam out because I don't fear it, but I really don't like it to be in my wine, but I didn't this time. So add the concentrate. Make sure that you get all the concentrate out using water.
So I'm going to try to
Don't mind.
pour a little bit of water.
This is Nature Blessed that we used. We got it from Amazon, and the link is in the description.
Then I'm going to add water up to the 96 ounces. While he throws stuff, I'm going to add water up to the 96 ounces,
Something for the puppies.
aka 75%.
So in past videos, we would use a formula, which you can still find, but it's possible to make addition or multiplication or some other mistake. So
No.
we have, I admit that I did it once or twice. So we now have a tool on craftywiners.com/tools that will do this for you. So we went to 3/4 of a gallon here, and now we're going to let the tool take over. This is called Calculate Sugar to Add to Wine Must. So what it wants is the,
Specific gravity.
which we have not taken yet,
Nope.
and it wants
The desired ABV.
Yeah, what we want it to be, and a Riesling we want it to be 12.
Yep. And or the desired initial gravity. That's an option as
And
well.
then it's going to tell you how much sugar to add. So we're going to go ahead and take the initial gravity, and guess what? That's what we forgot. She said, get the sucky thing. I said, we don't need the sucky thing, which is actually, most people call it a
Turkey baster.
turkey baster.
We don't need the sucky thing
Because this has
because of
got a
the pour
spout on it.
spout. But I am still so used to doing it. We've only been doing it in the pitcher for a few weeks now, so I'm still so used to pouring it into that tiny little opening.
So if you don't know how hydrometers work, we have a video that we'll link above.
And I am making batch notes here. If you're not familiar with batch notes, we do have a video on that as well. Basically, we just keep track of everything we've done as we go through the process, what yeast we used, what fruit or concentrate we used, what batch number it is, and everything throughout the whole process so that we can either know what we did wrong or know what we did right and recreate it exactly the same way again.
And trust me, we do that on almost every, unless something comes out to the point where it was terrible, we're going to dump it out and never do it again. We reuse these batch notes. We'll go back over the batch note for the previous batch of whatever it is we're making and say, okay, should we have done this different? Should we have done this different? And we use these all the time. So
Yeah, for this recipe, we are using the batch note from our last Riesling.
So the specific gravity, this is not the initial gravity, this is the specific gravity right now, it's 1.110. So she's going to plug that number into the tool. And again, if you like the formula, if you want to do the formula manually, it's linked on this page. You can go print it off and do the formula yourself. Or if you want to take this up to a gallon and then figure out the sugar, you can. But we were finding too often we were going over the gallon mark by adding the sugar when there was already a gallon of must in here.
So I
So
put
then we
in
ended up having to throw some out.
so I put in 1.110 for the current specific gravity. Our desired ABV is 12, 1 gallon that we're doing, and 75% full.
Correct.
And it says 3.5 ounces or approximately half a cup.
Not much,
Nope.
because Riesling's got a lot of sugar in it. And we're not wanting this to be the typical, like our Merlots are 15%. Yes, I can pour this back in. So we will get that sugar prepared and be back. If you're not using a power tool to mix this with, I would suggest putting must in with the sugar and stirring it up really well before you put it in here. We're skipping that because we have this.
I feel the need to explain this thing every time it's on camera, but this is something I found that made Halloween so much easier. You just cut the top off the pumpkin and use this to get all the guts out of it. Well, it's a multi-purpose tool because we use it in winemaking now. We stir paint with it, not the same one.
Yeah. No, not this one.
I've got like
Well,
10 of them.
She got like 10 of them, so if you can't find them at the store, it's her fault because she bought them all. These are on Amazon, and I will link it so you can get this. I mean, it looks just like a egg beater thing,
Except it's longer.
except it's longer. So you can use a beater, but you probably wouldn't be able to get it down into there where this does. So this is great.
But
And these are super cheap because people don't know you can use them for winemaking. So they don't
Now
have
they
that
do.
winemaking premium onto them.
But don't try to get them right before Halloween because you will not find them. Okay, so this is 3.6 ounces of sugar, aka about half a cup.
And I'm going to mix it up really well. And then we're going to add water and mix it up again. Okay, let's fill it up. So I created a little more foam there than I probably should have. I just kind of get that. It's kind of fun, so I got carried away. Oxygen is good for the must at this stage. So it is good to get the oxygen in there, but if you keep the beater down in further, you won't get the foam that I got here. But it's not really going to hurt anything other than kind of makes the hydrometer reading a little bit more challenging. But she's filling up now to the 128 ounce mark on the pitcher, which is 1 gallon, U.S. fluid gallon. 1 U.S. gallon.
1
128
gallon.
fluid ounces.
Yes.
And then I'm going to mix it up again. Okay, now we're going to get our official initial gravity to make sure that we are really close to our target, which was on our screen.
1.091.
And that is 12%. Now, the tool said we wanted 3.57 ounces of sugar, and our scale doesn't go to two
Yeah.
decimal places, so we did 3.6, but we should be pretty darn close. I have faith in the tool because it's proven itself to us a lot of times. Our initial gravity is
Drum roll, please.
hidden under foam,
Oh, that was
but I'm going to say 1.094, and we wanted
1.091.
so that rounding
Rounding
the
up.
sugar affected it a little bit, but the alcohol percentage, if you spin your hydrometer around, you can see what the potential alcohol is if this fermented to dry, which is what our intention is. That initial gravity will net us a 12.3 or 12.4%. So that's fine.
Yep, that's good. Okay, so I wrote that down.
You also will get little variances in sugars. Even the same sugar, you can get. It's typically 4 ounces of sugar for 1/1000th of a point of specific gravity, but sugar is granulized, and there could be little pockets and stuff that will affect that. So.
Oh, see, now you poured that back in here, but you didn't need to.
Should have caught me.
Sorry.
But we can because we have a pitcher.
Because we have a pour spout. So we'll put a little bit of the must in here, and then I'm going to add peptic enzyme, half a teaspoon of that.
The peptic enzyme will chew up some of the fruit particles that might be floating in this and help it clear.
Some of the wines we put tannins in.
Red wines.
Usually just the red wines. We're not going to put that in this one. Okay, so I mixed that up pretty well. I'm going to add it back in, and then we're going to stir again.
Okay, so I stirred it up real well. Now that our ingredients are all in there, we get to do our favorite part.
The pH. We have found out with especially our Franken wines, as he calls them, some of our experimental soda wines and stuff,
Or
pH
store-bought juice.
or store-bought juice that has preservatives and stuff in it. pH is a really big factor in your wine.
So for fermentation, we want the pH, doesn't matter if it's red, white, soda pop, juice of some other sort. The yeast want the pH to be between 4 and 6. And as expected,
It's not.
it's not. This pH is too low, so we're going to have to add potassium bicarbonate to raise it. It's 3.85.
And we are now shooting for higher than 4 now, so we try to get it around 5.
We like it 5 right in the middle. Sometimes I'll check the pH the second day of fermentation, and it will have dropped below 4 already.
Yeah.
So we start at 5 so that
So it's less likely
to do that. So if you don't have potassium bicarbonate, you can use baking soda. You can use calcium carbonate. You could use chalk if you wanted to grind it up. I wouldn't suggest it, but you could. Okay, so we put a total of
1 1/4 teaspoons of potassium bicarbonate.
Your results may vary, so you do need to use a pH tester. You may need a little less or a little more, but I'm thinking that you're going to have probably around the same amount as us that you're going to need to add if you're using the same concentrate and approximately the same water. Adding the sugar does adjust the pH, however, too, so the sugar will make it a higher number than it was before you added the sugar, but just slightly. So 4.95 is what we're good with. It's close to 5.
Okay.
I'm going to rinse off the pH meter so that this doesn't dry on there, and then we'll proceed. When you clean off your pH meter, you can use tap water under pressure to get the juice off of it. But then the final rinse needs to be with distilled water so that there aren't going to be any minerals that dry on the sensor, which will mess up your pH meter.
Yeah.
Now we're going to prepare the yeast.
So he's going to put a 1/4 cup of this must into a measuring cup that has a spout on it, purely for convenience, because it's easy to pour back into your vessel after it's done. Then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of Go Firm and mix it up.
Go Firm's not 100% mandatory, but I would
Recommend it.
definitely recommend it. We've found that we have fewer stalls, and it actually cuts a day or two off of the fermentation process. So we're kind of fans of it.
Yeah, it was a good change.
So the switch is, if you watch some of our older videos where we weren't using Go Firm, we do Fermate at a later stage. We're not doing that now, where we used to do it now, but now we're using Go Firm. On the 6th day for a white wine, I'll add 1 teaspoon of Fermate. That 6-day process for a white wine is to degas it using the food saver, or if you don't have a food saver, stir it, get some of the CO2 out. Then the second thing that I do is I add the teaspoon of Fermate. And then the third thing I do is add oxygen using an aeration wand. If you don't have an aeration wand, it's going to be fine probably, but you do want oxygen in the must for the yeast. So when you degas, if you're doing both of those stages with a spoon, be a little bit more aggressive and introduce some oxygen into the must while you're taking the CO2 out.
If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm fighting with the Go Firm because it sticks to this little whisk.
Yeah, Go Firm is sticky. So is yeast.
Yeah, the yeast is too. Also, for the oxygen in the white wines, I haven't really done it with the red wines, but with white wines, if you just go and take your airlock out or whatever you have in it and swirl it around a little bit just to get some more oxygen in there. Usually for the first 2 weeks, I'll do that. That is pretty well mixed up. Okay, so I took this and put it in the microwave for about 10 seconds to get it toasty for time's sake. And
Probably about 90 degrees.
About 90 degrees. When we're not filming, we just stick it in front of our little heater and get it up to that same temperature. So I am going to sprinkle a teaspoon of this Fresco cider yeast.
Yeah, via 2 half teaspoons.
Yeah.
All of our little containers are only
even this one won't fit in there.
Yeah, that's true. They're only wide enough for a half teaspoon. So our measurement of choice is a half teaspoon.
I ran out.
I've only been able to find this Fresco cider yeast one place, thebeveragepeople.com, I believe. I'll link it down below. We really like this for white wines. It's very hearty. It doesn't stall very often. And it almost always goes dry. I mean, obviously within reason. If you tried to go over 15 or 16%, it probably wouldn't go dry. But
yeah, it's been really good. Our Chardonnays really like it.
If you let the yeast sit here, it probably will get wet, and a bunch of it will end up going up on the sides of the measuring cup and die. So we've gotten into the habit here of kind of dunking it a little, make sure it gets wet, because then it'll probably stay wet and survive a little better.
And I used to use this whisk to dunk it with, and it's a pain in the butt, so I stopped doing that. So I would recommend using like a little spoon.
So there's a natural reason why it's a pain in the butt. The yeast is very sticky, so that it sticks on plants that it lands on. So it's naturally very sticky, very sticky substance.
But something that's more flat like this works really well.
Yeah. Okay, so this is going to go in front of our heater for about 2 hours. By the time 2 hours is up, it's going to be very
happy,
very different looking. It'll be poofy, and there'll be some bubbles.
The ice machine started dropping ice. They're like, the heck?
What you didn't see on camera was me carrying this over to the freezer to cool it down. I opened the freezer door, and a little big mouth bubbler that was up on top of the freezer
fell on his head.
It fell into my arms, basically. But I have reflexes like a cat, so I caught it. But a bunch of the Go Firm juice flew all over everything inside the freezer, including the ice. So it got dumped out. Yeah, that might be a B-roll blooper at some point.
Get that on camera, yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and add this to our carboy. So this went just short of the marks we etched on our carboys, which is less important if you're using a pitcher, but if you're not using a pitcher to do all the mixing in like we did, it's important to mark gallon marks on your carboys, and you'll find the video to do that there. But the reason it's a little below is because we have some of the must out, and we lost some of the must in our freezer.
And there's some foam.
And there's some foam.
So we're going to let this sit for 2 hours and get all happy and bubbly, and we're going to add it to that. We're not going to show you that part, but the last step after we do that is to add the blow-off tube.
The other end of this we'll put into the 2-gallon bucket of Star Sand solution that we use to sanitize everything. And that creates an airlock. If this end of it is in water or Star Sand, that'll keep anything from going up the tube, like flies or bees or ants or
anything,
bacteria of any sort. And then that also makes it so that the CO2 can bubble out into the water. So that this is an airlock. This is better, especially if you're filling up higher than we did, because again, we lost a little, and right now there's some that's not in here. But if you get it to the gallon mark, on a white wine, the fermentation is not really as bubbly and fervent as red wine, but I think it's a good habit to get into, to use the blow-off tube, because then you're never going to have
things blowing up.
Never going to have things rolling over, getting on the ground and being wasted. I usually use twist ties to tie the airlock on so that it doesn't come off, but that's mainly because a lot of our stoppers are not exactly the right size.
Right,
so they there have been too many times I would come and look at it the next morning and the stopper was on the floor and there was juice everywhere that had bubbled over. So the twist tie around the tube and through the handle on these carboys keeps that from happening.
After 2 hours,
Case in point,
like he was saying, that's what the twist ties are for.
Reflexes like a cat.
He keeps saying that. After 2 hours,
because the corgis aren't responding. Reflexes like a cat.
Cat is a bad word to the dogs. There they go. They're going to look for it.
They're going to look.
Anyway, after 2 hours, when this is all happy, you're going to add it to your carboy, put the airlock in. We typically let this sit in a warm place after we put the yeast in for a couple of hours just to get it incorporated and going, and then we put it in our fermenting room, which is about 60 degrees. You don't have to ferment white wines at that temperature, but this particular yeast does well at the cooler temperature.
White wines do better at cooler temperatures than red wines.
Yeah.
But it takes a month.
Yeah.
Where with a red wine, they'll be done in
couple weeks.
9 days or so. So we'll be back after about a month has passed and show you what to do from there.
It won't be a month for you, just a couple seconds.
3 weeks has passed and it's done.
Yeah, it went faster than we expected, actually.
Yeah, that's the Go firm makes it seem to go faster sometimes. So, and the temperature will play a factor in whatever. So the initial gravity on it to start with
was 1.094.
And this went extremely
really dry.
dry.
Yeah, it ended at 0.992.
That's a very low final gravity. We ended up with more alcohol in here than we projected because we didn't expect it to go so far under 1.000. So this is going to have some alcohol content to it.
Yeah, 13.77 it says.
Yeah, so we used our tool at craftywiners.com/tools, the one for calculating ABV, and you just put the starting gravity, the final gravity, and it gives you 3 different methods of calculating the ABV. We're using the one that we've been using probably since the beginning, and I think City Steading Brews has kind of spread it around. I don't know if they came up with it or found it, but it's the initial gravity minus the final gravity times 135. But there's also a very complex method that's supposed to be more accurate, and it's not one that's friendly to calculators. But you can just check that checkbox and use it, and it will end up being higher. What does it say that this is?
14.24.
So the truth is probably
Somewhere in the
that
middle.
or somewhere in the middle or whatever. But either way, this is going to be a potent Riesling. 12 is what we wanted. 12.5 is what we predicted based on the starting gravity. And then because it went so dry, it's higher than that. So we'll be fine with it. We like high ABV wines.
Yeah.
So we're going to rack it. Oh, before I don't mention it, on white wines, on the 14th day, you add, if you're using Go Firm to start the yeast with, on the 14th day, add a quarter teaspoon of Fermento. So on the 6th day, I added a teaspoon, and then on the 14th day, I added quarter teaspoon. That just keeps the yeast with nutrient to keep them going for that little extra mile. And it went the extra mile. So
Yeah, it
worked.
did.
So at the last of this, tilt it so that you get all as much as you can, but be really careful to not get that kind of nasty looking
Sediment in the bottom.
yeast. Okay, so we cleared us some room. I'm going to take some of this wine. It's not must anymore because we've fermented it.
Boy, did we ferment it.
We did a job on that sugar. I'm going to put a healthy amount. This is about maybe a quarter cup. And they're off to the side. And there's a reason.
Yep.
Okay, so the first ingredient
is chiasosol, and I put 1/8 of a teaspoon in, and then he's going to stir it in there, and we're going to let it sit in there for an hour before we add the rest of this stuff, which I will be adding to this little cup.
Now, the reason why is that chiasosol and chitosan work together, but they are opposite. So you want to give chiasosol time to work by itself before its opposite is added. We took that wine out first so that she could be mixing that while our hour timer is running.
It won't take me quite an hour to mix it,
It
but
won't take nearly that, so we'll end up pausing. And truth be told, we're not going to wait the full hour because we're filming. But we're going to wait as close as we can to let this do its job because we do want a clear Riesling.
yes, we do.
All of these ingredients, honestly, are optional. There are alternate ways of achieving the same things, but she's putting pectic. She's putting.
I'll tell you what I'm putting.
She's putting in stuff. She's going to tell you what she's
I'm putting in stuff. A teaspoon of chitosan, a 1/16 teaspoon of potassium metabisulfite.
The two potassiums slow the fermentation and make it harder for the yeast to restart fermenting.
Yeah, and the second one is what I'm putting in right now.
If you're not going to back sweeten and you're positive nobody else is going to at some point, you can probably skip that.
We, however, are not.
If you're going to drink it fast and not bottle it, you can probably skip that.
And the last thing I'm going to add is the bentonite, which is clay, and it's really hard to stir up.
When you're stirring your must, make sure you're not introducing oxygen unnecessarily. So just stir slowly. At this point, anytime from here on out, or actually a few days ago on out, oxygen is not good for wine. It was good to start with, and it's bad now. I don't know if I didn't hear her explain, the bentonite is another clearing agent. It's actually clay. Particles will stick to it and sink to the bottom. And we already explained the chitosan is the counterpart of chiasosol.
Yep.
So again, all of those are optional. If you're not going to use them, though, research what the negative outcome might be if you don't use them. Okay, so we waited a while. We're going to go ahead and put the
rest
ingredients in, even though a full hour hasn't passed. But if you can wait, you should wait.
And we usually do.
We do when we're not doing it on camera.
So I'm gonna go ahead and pour that in.
It's going to change the color a little, I can tell.
And I'm gonna have to have a little more of this stuff to rinse out the clay in the bottom.
Now stir it up again very gently. Okay, so it's stirred well. And guess what we get to do now? So this doesn't actually need to be done until right before you bottle it. If you're not going to bottle it, you can skip this. If there's a chance you're going to bottle it, I'd suggest at this point in time checking your pH and adjusting the pH, even though you may have to do it again before you bottle. But the reason why is if we have to add a bunch of stuff, we want to give it time to settle down to the bottom before we bottle. So we'll make the major adjustments now, and then it'll be minor adjustments because it's not going to change much between now and 4 weeks from now. We want the pH to be
between 3.1 and 3.3 for white wine.
And our pH right now is 4.93. It's almost 5. So we're going to have to lower it.
High.
We're going to want to lower it to high to mid 3s. It doesn't need to be exactly what it needs to be for bottling, but we want to do a lot of that now. So we are going to have to adjust it, unfortunately. Every time we add an acid, it's going to change the taste. And so one of our Franken wines is a Dr. Pepper wine. So the first time that I did it, I thought it makes sense to take the pH back to where it was when it was bottled, because that's the taste that people are going to expect. And it ended up being 12 teaspoons of citric acid, which I knew is what they used. And it ended up not being Dr. Pepper. It was lemon Dr. Pepper, which I don't think there is such a thing.
It was sour Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, so you got to be careful about adding ingredients that alter the taste. So we're going to stop there, even though it's not down to where we want. Right now, we don't even know if we're going to bottle this. We might just drink it. We may not like it.
We need to taste it.
We may give it away to somebody that's going to drink it right away. So yeah, we need to taste it. So we're going to go ahead and taste it now. We've done all the things that we need to do other than back sweeten. So again, we're expecting we're going to have to back sweeten. This is what we're probably going to back sweeten with because we're watching our girlish figures.
And this doesn't have any calories anything else.
Doesn't really have anything in it.
It's keto friendly.
And it's not fermentable, so we could have skipped the potassium sorbate and the potassium metabisulfite. Sure. Because this is not going to start fermentation. But again, we use it partly because we want to make sure that you're aware that you should use it if you're going to back sweeten, especially using sugar. And if you give your wine to somebody that's going to add sugar to it because they think it's too dry, I think it's always good if you're going to give wine away as gifts to safeten it in case they put it into a bottle at some point.
Safeten it? Is that a thing?
It is now.
Okay. We're going to say that in our recipe. Make sure you safeten it.
We had this chilled to start with, but it's been out long enough now that it's not very chilled.
Well, it is. I can tell it's got a high alcohol content.
I can taste the alcohol for sure, but
it could use something.
It needs sugar or something.
Rieslings do have a lot of fruit notes in them. In fact, I kind of taste a little bit of pear in there. What if...
It's hard to detect because I'm drinking red wine.
What if we infuse a lot of our wines, our red wines? You'll see our recipes with coffee and chocolate and bourbon and whiskey. We haven't infused a Riesling.
What do you want to infuse it with? Bourbon?
No, God, no. Can you imagine? Bourbon Riesling?
Coffee? Ugh. Chocolate?
What about fruit?
Do we have fruit?
I have some frozen fruit in the freezer. I could thaw it out real quick and mush it.
What kind of fruit?
I think it's like a tropical blend. I think it's got peaches and pineapple and mango. Strawberries, maybe?
Well, it would probably mask the high ABV a little bit.
And then we probably wouldn't want to put the sweetener in it
Not now,
until we
because there's gonna be sweet from the
till we
fruit.
taste it again. Yeah, let's try it.
Okay, we'll get ready for that and be back. Okay, so she thawed out some frozen fruit in the microwave, and we're gonna use these infusers so that we're not having to fish out the fruit parts later. Or, well, we may end up having to rack it again anyway, but
Probably.
again, this is not part of our, we're not going to say right now that this is our Riesling recipe. You don't need to follow our lead here. You can use sugar or you can use allulose to sweeten it, or leave it alone if you don't think you need to back sweeten it.
Because
So totally your choice.
Rieslings can be dry.
We are going to do this just kind of as an experiment off the cuff.
I think it's fun.
And I probably will leave this and not edit it out. But if it doesn't turn out well, I might edit this out and you'll never know we did this. So that's why we're showing the allulose, because that might be all you ever see is in the video. So we think if I hold this like this, she can put the fruit in and the juices are going to drain out the
Let me
bottom.
stand up, but I'm going to step on Pippin. Pippin, you're going to have to move.
And then I will carefully put the lid on and drop the infuser in here.
Yeah, so there is pineapple, mango, peach, and strawberry in here. Seems like a good combo. It's finally almost summer, you know, hot temperatures outside, a nice fruity cold wine.
Right now it's May 16th. So we're finally getting to use our back porch where
Yes.
we
It
have
was
TV.
it was 80 today.
Okay, we don't need to overdo this one since we have two, but if you think you're going to be able to fit it in there, then
Well,
fine.
I've got a little bit more. We don't have to use all of it necessarily.
Just mash it down a little without knocking it out of my grasp.
That's almost all of it. One more peach. I think that's
I'm
good.
guessing this is going to sink to the bottom. It's heavy, so
Should be. That was a lot of fruit.
this is a stainless steel infuser. We have
Several of them.
like 6 of them now, various sizes. And it's going to displace.
Ooh.
It's carrying our headroom problem.
You won't have to put any marbles in it.
Okay.
Cool. Well,
For better or worse, there it is. Now, we will check this. I'm thinking safe thing is to check it
in a week.
in probably every 3 days.
Well,
because you can't take the flavor back out. So she knows what she's looking for. I have no idea what she's looking for. So we will put this back into our fermenter and check it every 3 days or so until she thinks that it's the way she wants it. We may or may not get the sweetness that we're looking for, so we may still use allulose to sweeten it. But I know there will be some sweetness that comes
just
from
the, I mean, you can smell it.
Is there juice still in there you want to pour in there? Or is
No, I got it. I got it all in.
We will come back again and tell you what the final result is when she says it's done.
And who knows when that'll be.
So we added a lid and an airlock, and this will go into our around 60 degree now because it got warmer outside and our air conditioner is struggling with 55 degrees. So right now we're going to say it's our 60 degree fermenting room for 3 days. And actually, we're not going to come back in 3 days and say how it tastes. Probably we will just tell you when it's done and it got to the level that she wants. So we'll be back in a few for you. Seconds, that is.
Okay, it has been 6 days since we racked this for us. Luckily not for you.
We tasted this 3 days ago, and she felt that it could use more time. So before we taste it, I move this up and down to get all the juice and particles out of the infuser into the wine. Unfortunately, that stirs up some of the yeast that's developed down at the bottom, so it becomes cloudy again, but that's just part of the process. So it'll settle back down. If this is good, we're going to stick this in our 34-degree fridge, which will increase the speed of the particles going to the bottom. And if it's not good, it doesn't really matter that it's cloudy.
You have little faith.
Well, I know it'll
It'll
be
be
good.
good.
It's whether or not it's good, in your opinion, as far as the fruit being infused.
Right.
And if the fruit level is good, then when we will also back sweeten it if she wants to do that. So we're drinking San Chapelle Riesling. San Chapelle is big in our area. I'm not sure if it is in yours, but
And Rieslings do have a wide variety of how they're made.
I need a sucky thing. So we're intentionally drinking a wine that is similar to what we're doing here because
For after.
we can take a taste of this Riesling that we like, take a taste of this, and say, it needs to be sweeter. It's a very quick and easy way of comparing the sweetness level. We're expecting ours to be better than San Chapelle because of the fruit.
It'll be different for sure. Rieslings really vary in taste and sweetness. In fact, we have a bottle upstairs right now that's from Columbia Valley that is not very sweet. And then
This is from and this is also from Columbia Valley, but they intentionally, I think, make this sweeter than some.
Okay. And then the Riesling that from San Chapelle Riesling is always a little on the sweeter side. So it's totally personal preference. If you want to back sweeten it, if you want to leave it more on the dry side, totally up to you. Some people actually turn it into as sweet as a dessert wine. So that's an option as well.
Which I don't think we're trying to do.
No, we're not going to do that. Ooh, that's yummy.
Oh, sure.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's better than.
Yeah, it is.
But it's not. It needs to be sweeter, in my opinion.
It's fruity. So that fruit really did
The fruit is all there.
a lot.
It takes a second for it to hit you, and then there's a lot of fruit. I'd say that we take the fruit out, in my opinion.
Yes,
It's fruity.
I would take it out.
So 6 days for us. 3 days was actually a little borderline, but yeah, you can taste. I don't know what fruit am I tasting most there.
I don't know. Because there's
Wow, that's got flavor.
There's pineapple, strawberries,
Taste the pineapple.
peaches, and mango in this.
It's almost. It's a fruit punch type.
It's really good.
Yeah, that's got
I like it a lot.
ton of flavor. That's a lot more flavorful than it was 3 days ago.
I'm not sharing this. I'm not sharing it with anybody except for you. You can have some.
Thanks.
Hiding it when the kids come over. But yes, I think it could use a little bit of sweetness, but not a ton. I don't think we want to get overboard with the sweet.
I don't know that I want to look inside this infuser to see what this fruit mash looks like, but we will when we clean it out. Yeah. You want to see what it looks like?
Oh, God. Yeah, I do. I want to see
Probably,
what it looks like.
I'm expecting that a lot of the color is bleached out.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks like brains.
But it's not brains.
And there's juice coming out when I tip it, which is odd because there are also holes on the bottom, but I guess they're plugged up with
Fruit pulp.
Yeah, all the colors bleached out, which is expected. Okay, so
See, it was a good idea.
no,
I think you thought I was crazy.
this is unlike any Riesling that probably anybody's had, so that's good. So now we'll go through the sweetening process, and we just got done doing this with
With a Moscato.
a Moscato. So
Needed a lot.
we do have a little more of an idea now on this allulose. So this allulose is non-fermentable sugar. We're not in danger of restarting our fermentation, even if we wouldn't have added the potassium sorbate and metabisulfite it.
Right.
This is a little bit less sweet than sugar, so you put a little bit more in. It's 1 1/3 tablespoon versus a tablespoon of sugar.
Which is completely the opposite of what I was expecting because I use like stevia and stuff in coffee and things like that, and it's like 10 times sweeter than sugar.
It's a
So,
dangerous thing because you can easily put too much.
right.
This we did for the Moscato, we did
6
tablespoons.
So I say we start with 1 and we'll go from there.
I'm going to stir this up again a little, which I probably should have done before we did the first tasting, but you can get pockets of liquid that are sweeter than others. So if you dip into that pocket, you might get a false sense of the sweetness level. I'm just taking out enough liquid that she can dissolve into it. When you stir this at this time, make sure you're gently stirring so that you don't oxygenate it. Want to taste it?
Oh, yes, I do.
I'm not taking a very big sample size because if we end up doing 6 tablespoons, we're both going to be drunk off our butts.
We're gonna be drunk before we get done sweetening it.
Take a drink of this and a drink of that for every 6.
I think that's enough.
So she did 2 tablespoons of this allulose, which is going to be like, I don't know, 1.5 tablespoons of sugar.
Approximately.
And she likes it.
Yep.
You could put more, you could put less, you could put none, however you want to do it. But I don't think this is going to last very long. She really likes it.
Yeah, I do. I really like the fruit.
Then we're going up to the mountains for Memorial Day, so I have a feeling that
It might come along with us.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it. The next thing we're gonna do is let it sit for a little while, maybe, and bottle it.
We'll put this in our fridge. I'm gonna fix this headroom probably by adding marbles to it because this is a little bit too much oxygen room at the top. So I'll put some marbles in. If we had some more Riesling that we were not drinking, I could add that in here to get rid of the headroom.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving up what's left of my Riesling.
The marbles will work. That's what we use a lot of times. Food safe, sanitized, lead-free marbles.
The 34-degree fridge will allow this to clear even more than it is. It won't be as yellow, I'm sure, tomorrow when we look at this after it sits in there overnight. And we did stir up sediment when we were
stirring in the sugar.
doing the activities. So that, I think, is it.
So if you guys want to follow along with our recipe, follow it up along until you get to the racking part before we put the fruit in there. And then it's up to you what you want to do with it. It's your imagination. You can put fruit in it. You can leave it alone. You can put sugar in it. You can leave it alone. You can put lots of sugar in it and make it a dessert wine.
We've got some long metal straws at home. She could stick a straw on this and just have at it. In fact, you know what? A straw would fit right through that air hole.
You know what? It would. Those metal straws we have would fit right through there.
Because if you're going to bottle it, you're going to want to lower the pH more. We were at 4.49 6 days ago. It's not going to change much from that. You do want to get it down to around 3.2 probably if you're going to bottle it and have it stored for any amount of time. More than a month, more than maybe 2 months, you would want to lower the pH. But it's not going to do that. We're not going to have it laying around.
No, I don't think so. And adding the acids to lower it does affect the taste.
Change the taste. You would want to use
tartaric acid.
You would want to do something similar if you're going to bottle it. If you're not going to keep it for more than a month or two, you probably don't need to worry about that. But if there's a chance that the bottle is going to stay in your wine cellar or whatever I would suggest go ahead and lower the pH the rest of the way down to 3.2 or so before you bottle it.
Yep. So thank you for watching our video. We're excited to hear what you guys did with your Riesling. Please like our video, make comments, ask questions. We will reply to you. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you very much. We appreciate you. We appreciate the support. Until next time, cheers.